Well, welcome to this symposium, Thomas Berry in Italy. And welcome to all those who haven't been around for a while, but who knew Thomas Berry very well. For those of you who did not know Thomas Berry, at least in person, he was very well known here at our university and was present very often. He was part of our program abroad, and he had great influence on a lot of the programs that we have today. In my mind, Thomas Berry was a prophet. Now, the theologians here know that a prophet is basically a teacher on behalf of God, not somebody who tells the future. However, Thomas Berry was a man who did both. He was a teacher on behalf of God because he was talking about the sacredness of creation. And he told the future because the messages we hear today about the ecology, environment, all the study that's going on is something that he said we as a community of people in the global community had to address. And of course, he was a prophet in as much as our Holy Father, Pope Francis, took the very themes that Thomas was talking about and put them into that beautiful encyclical, Laudato Si. So welcome to everybody here. Thank you, Dr. Ferrero, for your work on the production of the book. Thank you to all the co-authors. It was a brilliant group you assembled, I have to say. Myself being one of them, of course. And we're very grateful to you for organizing this day as well. Thank you, and now I'd like to call Dr. Jonathan Roach forward to give the introduction.
Thank you, Monsignor. Two announcements as we are beginning today. The first announcement is there are copies of the book for sale for $10. Elsie, who is right over there, can help you out if you wish to purchase a copy of the book. And secondly, this afternoon, we will meet here at the library if you want a tour of the garden. So this afternoon here at the library for a tour of the garden. It is now my pleasure to introduce Dr. Elisabetta with Ferrero. Nina, what time is the tour?
It's at 2 o'clock. We'll meet here at 1:45.
We'll meet here at 1:45 for a 2 o'clock tour. So Dr. Ferrero has taught ethics, environmental ethics, Italian literature here at St. Thomas University since 1987. So since I was in the 7th grade. She has been a lead agent in having the university receive the prestigious Renew America Environmental Achievement Award from the Rodell Foundation. She has served as director of SAFE, the Study Abroad for Earth programs in Ecuador and Italy, and organized conferences on spirituality and sustainability in Assisi, Italy, 1991 to 2000. She has edited the recently published book, Thomas Berry in Italy, Reflections on Spirituality and Sustainability, on which our panel will be discussing today. Some of the chapter authors will be serving with her today on this panel. Dr. Ferrero is also the author of published articles and conference presentations in applied ethics and literature, as well as being a published poet in Italian and in English. She serves as a member of the advisory committee of the University of Florida Extension Institution for Food and Agricultural Sciences, and serves on the executive board of Pax Roma USA, a Catholic movement for intellectuals and cultural affairs. Dr. Ferrero and panelists, welcome today. Thank you for being here.
Good morning, everyone. Tom Berry's in Italy, Reflection on Spirituality and Sustainability, was written primarily to commemorate the 100th anniversary of Thomas Berry's birth through the words, emotions, and memories of former participants of St. Thomas University Study Abroad program and conferences, where Tom Berry was visiting professor and keynote speaker. The book's intent was for the participant to look back more than 20 years and to ask themselves what recollections and interactions in Assisi with Father Berry seem to have been important in their transformation on a personal level and in one's profession. Many of the former students in those study abroad programs now hold leadership positions in their community, and all participants' lives and careers were deeply transformed due to the encounters with Tom Berry, either in formal discussions or informally in the Piazza of Assisi over espresso and gelato. Let me now introduce you the panelists who will share their experiences with Tom Berry. To my right, I have Dr. Joe Iannone, who has a Ph.D. in Theology from the University of Notre Dame. He was a member of the Theology faculty at St. Thomas for many, many years. In addition, he was founding dean of the School of Arts and Sciences, the Graduate School, and the School of Theology and Ministry. And in 1990, he founded the Center for Healing the Earth, centered on Tom Berry's cosmology. Next to Dr. Iannone, Dr. Joe Holland, who holds a PhD from the University of Chicago in social ethics and is professor of philosophy and religion, as well as adjunct professor in the School of Law and the School of Theology and Ministry. He serves as president of Pax Romana, Catholic Movement for Intellectual and Cultural Affairs, is editor of Pacem in Terris Press, vice chairperson of Catholic Scholars for Worker Justice, and is a member of the International Association for Catholic Social Thought, based at the University of Leuven in Leuven, Belgium. To my left, Dr. James Conley, who's professor of English and Humanities at St. Thomas University, where he has taught since 1976, and where he served as Associate Dean of Biscayne College for Liberal Arts and Social Science. He holds a PhD in Comparative Literature from the University of Wisconsin, an MA in Italian from Middlebury College, and a BA in English from Georgetown University. He has published several articles on Petrarch, Tasso, and Milton. And last but not least, Eugenia Ferrero, who received her JD from the University of Georgia Law School. Her publications have focused on law, ethics, and environmental issues. She teaches communication at St. Thomas University. She's presently completing a doctorate in communication, which she will defend in June. Her dissertation is an ethical and legal examination of the public relations strategies and tactics used by the No on 37 campaign to defeat GMO labeling in California in 2012. She was the only participant to all of St. Thomas Study Abroad programs and conferences with Father Tom Berry in Italy. Please welcome our panelists. In the 90s, St. Thomas University became known as one of the best green universities in the United States. It offered innovative, ecologically study abroad programs and conferences in Assisi on sustainability and spirituality. And in the spring of 1992, St. Thomas received the most prestigious environmental award from the Rodel Foundation in Washington, D.C. St. Thomas was selected from over 1,600 universities in recognition for its innovative environmental projects and to serve as environmental models. Dean Iannone was Dean of the College of Arts and Sciences at the time. And Healing the Earth was instrumental in introducing Tom Berry's cosmology at St. Thomas University, which he founded, as we said, in 1990. Dr. Iannone?
Thanks, Elisabetta, and it's great to be back home here and see really long-established friends and, of course, Monsignor. Actually, my involvement began with a phone call. In February 1990, I coordinated a conference on the peace dividend here at St. Thomas University. The idea was the Soviet Union dismantled, all this money is supposed to go to peace, it never happened. We had a great conference from Thursday to Sunday night. I got home around 9 o'clock on a Sunday night, tired, I had taken the last speaker to the airport. The phone rings in our house, and a voice says, "Is this Dr. Joe Iannone?" I said, "Yes." "Oh, please tell me how I could attend the Peace Dividend Conference." And I was tired, exhausted. I thought it was a colleague prank, I was going to hang up. But actually, it was a woman who had arranged to debut a movie here in South Florida called Mind Walk, which you could still find on demand. It debuted in theaters in the fall, and her name was Christine Penrod. And so I met with her that week, and on May 1st down in Lincoln Road in the theater, with about 300 people, we debuted the movie based on Fritjof Capra. He came. The next day we had our first Healing the Earth conference, and I was just carried along. It wasn't me who was the initiative, I just got carried along. And in the next number of years, as Elisabetta mentioned, we had major conferences on Healing the Earth here at St. Thomas. That's where Tom Berry came in for us, Mary McGillis, Fritjof Capra, Brian Swim, and many of the people here in this book. So we then came to, that was May. In August, Elisabetta comes back from visiting her mother in Italy, and she has a big brown paper bag. And she said, we use these in Italy for shopping, it's recyclable. And on it, she had SAFE, Study Abroad for the Earth. And she had this wonderful idea about the Study Abroad program. And off it went that following year. In fact, that year, 1991, we celebrated Tom Berry's 75th birthday with a conference, Life is a Celebration. Some of his family members came. And so again, kind of like carried along. And then in our MA program in Pastoral Ministries, Dr. Mercedes Iannone, we created a 5-course specialization certificate, graduate courses in Healing the Earth. And we offered them up in New Jersey at Genesis Farm with Sister Mary McGillis. And many of the faculty at Miami-Dade College, their Environmental Ethics Institute, went there to get certified for SACS to teach their courses. And over the years, over 300 people around the country and the world attended those courses. Again, I'm pulled along, In 1992, Hurricane Andrew came and devastated South Florida, as we know, and took down most of the Miami-Dade County pines along Biscayne, Key Biscayne, and south. We made a deal with Miami-Dade County. They came, they took 10,000 of our pine cones, because we had the largest standing crop of these trees. And they brought them to the University of Florida. They processed them. We got 1,000, which we gave out to Catholic parishes and schools. 9,000 seeded. When you drive out to Camden Park, those are children of Miami-Dade, St. Thomas University's campus. So again, pulled along. And then finally, with 1996, with the graduate school, we decided we'll follow Elizabeth's example and do a study abroad program. And Eugenia, they're actually organized it for us and came. And from then on, we took graduate students for 2 weeks, not only to Assisi, but different bioregions, Greece, Spain, Ireland, But the whole concept, again, was this. And by that time, Tom Berry had become, you know, very much part of the fabric of St. Thomas University. And we also created that Chicky Hut on a grant, which Elisabetta used to teach her classes. And on Saturday, she dragged her students to create the garden that you now see as a symbol, along now with the solar panels. So a lot of this that happened for me in the early 90s propelled me through all my rest of my time here at St. Thomas. And finally, I'd like to say that the partnerships that have sprung from that initial phone call and the people who, like Joe Holland and people on the panel, who carry this into their classrooms and through many, many other partnerships with the Earth Ethics Institute there, Miami-Dade, Narrow Ridge, and on it goes. And I would say, for me, I was kind of, again, kind of like pulled along, which is a good place to be. Ever since I read in conclusion Tom Berry's book, Dream of the Earth, every morning, now when I bike, I repeat a little mantra to myself. There's 3 parts. One is dream big. The dream of the earth, the dream of the universe, the dream of God's creation. So unfolding, so beautiful. Try to be part of that dream. And second, take stock of all your assets. And with Teilhard de Chardin, our assets in each one of us here today is unique and singular. All cosmogenesis, all biogenesis, all neurogenesis, and all Christogenesis unfolding is in each one of us. So we have tremendous assets as humans to be part of this dream and not make it a nightmare, but make it part of God's unfolding. And then finally, the third part is dream big, take stock of your assets, and then start small. It was a phone call, which was like the butterfly effect for me. It just kind of kept moving. It could be the acorn, the oak tree, it could be the leaven in the bread, or with Pope Francis here last weekend when he brought those 12 refugees back. He said it was like a drop of water in the ocean. But he also said the ocean will never be the same. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Joe. And afterwards, hopefully, we will have time for questions, comments, and interactions. Dr. Joe Holland?
First, I would like to thank Elisabeth for this amazing project of the book that she put together and for all she's done over so many years at St. Thomas. I just share a little story of Elisabeth and Joe. I didn't become a professor until quite late in the game, until I was 50, and worked at a think tank in Washington and later up at Seton Hall, in the Archdiocese of Newark at Seton Hall. I noticed that the church was losing communication with young people, so I thought if they wouldn't come to us, I would go where they couldn't escape, where they're locked into classrooms, and I could talk to them. So I looked for a university position, and I had one offer from Fordham University, which was very attractive because my father and my daughter both graduated from Fordham Law School. But when I learned what Joe and Elisabeth were doing here at St. Thomas, I decided to come here instead, and I never, ever regretted that. It was extraordinary, the visionary leadership of the 2 of them. I have 8 minutes. I'm probably down to about 6 now. I meant to put on my timer. I'll do that. I put together a little outline of this, and I looked back on it and I said, this is not an outline for what was originally to be a 10-minute talk. I think it was for a very long book. So I'll just skim the outline a little bit for you. The title will sort of, and you have a copy, not that it will be much help, but the title is The Postmodern World Historical Transformation of Western Modernity's Mechanistic Philosophical Cosmology and its Deep Intellectual Challenge to the Catholic University. Just for postmodern, I don't mean by that what is usually meant in academic circles, which those uses of the word I view as only late modern. Postmodern, in my view, is a cosmological transformation that is only beginning and Joe and Elizabeth have been important mentors in that transformation. Cosmology is, I would propose, the foundation of all intellectual disciplines and also of all institutions in society, including academic and religious institutions. However, we're living now in the breakdown of the modern world. That's a strange thing to say. Miami is scheduled to go underwater pretty soon, and Fort Lauderdale. That's part of the breakdown. It'll come sooner or later. I think it's inevitable. In Laudato Si, the papal encyclical, the Pope himself said we are at the end of the modern world. And he quoted something popes have never done before in the encyclical. He quoted a book from outside the Bible and outside the church's doctrinal tradition by the great mid-20th century Italian German philosopher and psychologist Romano Guardini. And the book is titled Das Ende der Neuzeit, the end of the modern world. And Bergoglio, the Pope, when he was a young priest, was a Jesuit, was pursuing a doctorate on Guardini's work. He knew it very well, and I guess he insisted it be in the encyclical. So I assume we are now in the middle of the breakdown, not only the end of Miami, but the end of the modern world. Could be catastrophic, very frightening, very turbulent, but also very promising that young people can get in on the ground floor of constructing a new civilization. The key, though, intellectually to the shift is the cosmological shift. Clearly, the modern cosmology, which I'll speak to in a minute, that is breaking down. That's I think, fairly clear that anybody has eyes to see intellectually and also in institutions. All institutions are becoming, not through their own fault, but dysfunctional. And we need to restructure them in very foundational ways on different cosmological foundations, and especially the university, which is the key institution of late modern society and for the future. So we're in the middle of a world historical transformation, a deep intellectual challenge. The university is the key institution. That's America. Real quick, we can discern 4 different eras in at least the Western human journey, different cosmological eras. I don't see these as replacements, rather as concentric circles. We don't leave any behind. We incorporate them in the new. We've gone from primal, not all of us, some of us have gone from primal tribes based on speech to classical city-states and agricultural empires based on mechanical printing, the Roman Empire, for example. Postmodern local, global, ecological, modern nation-states and industrial empires, originally especially the British, now the American Neo-Empire, based on mechanical printing, and now postmodern local, global, ecological civilization, the seeds of which have been planted but has not yet emerged, and it would be based on electronics. In terms of their respective cosmologies, primal cosmologies were based on the insights of the nature religion and cyclical holism, with information coming only out of popular wisdom. The classical Western Aristotelian Ptolemaic cosmology proposed a higher-lower dualism of hierarchical dualism of matter and spirit, based on studious observation by a clerical intellectual class over many, and philosophers over long periods of time. The modern Western Cartesian Newtonian cosmology, which is about 500 years old, constructed over the past 500 years, based on objective-subject dualism of matter and mind. That is the one that is now collapsing, and with it, all modern institutions and the modern intellectual life collapsing into what the great British philosopher Sir Alfred Whitehead called scientific materialism. We're seeing now the triumph in both ideologies of liberal capitalism and scientific socialism, the triumph of scientific materialism, and in turn the collapse into Nietzschean nihilism, as a reason, because it has no meaning. And finally, we're also seeing the seeds, at least, of the emergence of a postmodern global cosmology of what I would call evolution, the evolutionary holism of cognitive matter. And there, the Santiago School of Cognitive Science is foundational, as is Friedrich Capra, who has returned his biological model of systems theory, and especially the new cosmology that Thomas Berry and Brian Swim and others have attempted to articulate. The challenge to the Catholic University, about 1 minute left, the Western University is still grounded in the modern cosmology, which is collapsing. The Catholic University, for the first half of the 20th century, tried to provide an intellectual alternative to that by retrieving medieval Thomism, but the ground of that Thomism was still in the Aristotelian Ptolemaic cosmology, and that Neo-Thomist revival failed. The late modern university has two choices, either to collapse into scientific materialism and ultimately into late modern nihilism, or to begin to search through the new cosmology and the new biological systems theory on a global scale for a new cosmological vision for a new era in the human journey based on the evolutionary holism of cognitive matter. Some resources for this, I would argue, certainly Thomas Berry and Brian Swim and the work that Elisabeth and Joe have done, one of the few universities in the world where the seeds of this were ever planted, but more broadly, the ongoing work of Friedrich Capra in science, of Charlene Spretnak in ecofeminism, as well as Carolyn Merchant in history, David Noble in technology, and for a journalistic account, Naomi Klein. And I think that should be about 8 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I would like to add just a few words about the two presentations of our panelists. One of the things that Dr. Iannone hasn't told you is that in '91, when I brought that back from Italy, he and I had a long talk. I knocked on his door because he was my dean at the time, and he was the kind of dean that you could always, always, always be there. And whatever he did, he interrupted in order to talk to you. And I've never forgotten that. And I said, Joe, I have this incredible idea. And I explained to him what I wanted to do with Tom Berry. And Joe said, go for it. I said, but I don't know. I've just read all the books by Tom Berry, but I never met him. He said, don't worry. He came back 5 minutes later with a phone number, and he said, go and call him now. So this is the kind of dean and the kind of person, the leadership that we had at St. Thomas University with Joe. Dr. Holland, such an incredible colleague, and also someone who came to teach in the study abroad program, who knew Tom Berry very well. And in fact, the last time that Joe and I were in Italy with Tom Berry, whenever we had the opening of the book that we co-authored on the Eugenia, and Tom Berry, who was already in his late 80s, Joe went to pick him up from the airport, and he had one little bag. It looked like a shopping bag.
Lunch bag.
Lunch bag, that's it. And Joe said, well, let's go and get your luggage. He said, what luggage? This is my luggage. This is the kind of simplicity that this incredible human being had. Now, just a few words about the study abroad program. In '91, actually on June 18, 1991, 21 students left for Assisi. And they left primarily because of the marketing that this woman and my student worker did about Tom Berry, who is going to be the main speaker in this very innovative ecological program. And they stayed in a small family-run hotel in Assisi, eating very simple meal, vegetarian meal on top of that, with no air conditioning in the heat of the summer months, but with views of the Umbrian countryside that every morning the students could not believe. This is the program of study abroad for the earth that we have, and it attracted more and more as the years went on. So at this point, I would like to have Professor Eugenia Ferrero proceed with her presentation. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to turn my stopwatch on so I don't go over my time.
Cool. Yes.
Okay. All right. So as you all know, I was in high school, just started high school, was a very young high school student at the time, and my experiences where I was able to participate in the SAFE program and in the conferences for the full 9 years that they ran. And meeting Thomas Berry and had a significant impact just in my own professional and choices for careers along the way. Basically, as a teenager, you wouldn't really think that you would have this type of exposure, and it was even strange for me at times to think that I was going to these programs and meeting Thomas Berry and Rupert Sheldrake and Mary Evelyn Tucker and Brian Swim, and being able to listen to them, and also they were okay of having a little teenager running around and asking questions and not having the mental acumen that they did at that point with all of their own experiences and education, but they took the time to sit with me and talk and let me hang around and listen, not only during the day, during their presentations, but also at night in the piazza with all the gelatos and the coffees and everything else. So it did have a critical impact on my own personal growth and development in my career choices. But also the friendships and bonds that I made during those years have endured both geographic and professional boundaries. And the beauty of social media and networking sites is we all still stay in touch. So friends of mine that I made, especially the students who had attended, we all stay in touch and are able to still participate and build on what we did back in those early days. Before the SAFE program, honestly, I really didn't give much thought to environmental justice or sustainability and what that really meant. So as a teenager, most teenagers really don't. We have other things that we're worried about, and that's where my focus was. But having been there with Thomas, it helped me and develop more empathy and compassion, and it started fostering those concerns and that interest on my end. And one of the, throughout my career, going to school and working, I had a mentor in graduate school, my MA program, and he told me one time that life is like a boat ride through the Amazon rainforest. You have to keep moving, and the fun and adventure is what you find around the corner. And that pretty much exemplifies what my life has been like. It's been one twist and one turn, not knowing what I was going to find as soon as the boat would turn the corner. And if you had told me 5 years ago or 2 years ago that I would be back at St. Thomas teaching in Miami, I would have said you were crazy and you had no idea what you were talking about. But it has been that way, and all of those have been very beneficial, and it has allowed me to put into practice a lot of the teachings of Thomas Berry and having the compassion and showing the interconnectedness that exists between humans and nature and non-human beings alike. And my initial goal was going to law school, but I was quickly disillusioned by the legal process, and it pushed me back into academia, working on my Ph.D., and that is where I find myself now, focusing more on communication, new technologies, and how we can use them in a way that is beneficial and that takes away the separateness that we have in trying to build a new dream and bringing together humans and non-human beings alike and having compassion and empathy alike. And it becomes this incredible journey. It is this new dream, and we're able to transform not only ourselves, but also the people that we come into contact with. It's like the butterfly, right? It's the caterpillar who dies and transforms itself into this amazing new being, the butterfly, with brilliant colors that we would have never expected in our wildest dreams. And it gives us a heightened sense for love and sensitivity and sacredness and the awesomeness of the dream. And hopefully we can all build together this new dream. Thank you.
So the SAFE, the study abroad program, started in '91. However, St. Thomas University, because of all the success that it was having with it, in 1995, it partnered with the Center for Respect of Life of the Environment in Washington, D.C. And what they did, they sponsored a series of conferences on spirituality and sustainability, where eminent leaders from various fields, once a year, participated in a week-long series of very intensive conferences. Moral questions, as they related to a sustainable future, were researched, discussed in a participatory format with the intent of then implementing these transformations in people's lives and work. And one of the important outcomes of that was having both the SAFE program and the SAY program students, and the conference is running alongside, and that was done on purpose. And this created an incredible synergy, and you could see students and professors alike meeting in the piazza, meeting in the conference, discussing serious questions. And that was really the synergy that this was all about. Dr. Conley was one of the faculty members of the SAFE program who taught there, and subsequently directed, I think for 2 years, 3 years, St. Thomas Study Abroad programs. Dr. Conley?
Dr. Ferrero, thank you very much. My gratitude to Dr. Ferrero goes very far back. It goes as far back as when Dr. Marie Vargas was in that terrible accident, and Dr. Ferrero stepped up and started teaching French for us for a year, I guess, or a semester. And then, of course, Dr. Iannone and Dr. Ferrero invited me to teach in the study abroad for the Earth program back in 1995. And I had the wonderful opportunity to meet Tom Berry and to talk with him all around the city of Assisi and to share with him many of his ideas. And I thought it was stressed that I needed to be brief. And you have to understand that English professors kind of talk in 50-minute units. So, but in these few minutes, what I'd like to do is share with you some of the ideas, two major ideas of Tom Berry's. One concerns a concept called the three mediations, and another concerns just the influence of the story of the universe as it applies to cultures generally, and as it could apply to the literary works that help us understand those cultures. So, and for that, I've given you a little handout. There are 5 passages here, so there's about a minute on each of them that I can share with you. The first is from St. Francis of Assisi's probably most famous poem, one of the earliest poems in Italian literature. It's called The Song of Creation in English, and in Italian it's called the Cantico delle Creature. And I've given the Italian there. If you have a second, I'll try and read a couple of the notes. Thomas Berry's writings about the three mediations and about the just the awesomeness of nature, but also that it's terrifying as well as entrancing qualities, is the thought that particularly relates to the great masterpiece of the Middle Ages, Dante's Divine Comedy. And much of the chapter that I wrote on is devoted to the Divine Comedy. I developed this PowerPoint here. It's the title of the chapter is The Imaging of the Earth in San Francesco and Dante, and some reflections associated with talking with Tom Berry as we walk the streets of Assisi together. So, Larry, we could go to maybe the next slide. Chosen not only the cover of the book, but also one of these wonderful frescoes of Giotto that are around on the walls of the Basilica of San Francesco in Assisi. This particular one is a fresco of San Francesco preaching to nature, to the birds, and next to it is a painting that hangs in the Duomo in Florence. It's by a Florentine Renaissance Florentine painter, Domenico di Michelino. And it's simply called Dante and his Commedia, and it shows the 3 different sections of the Divine Comedy. We could go to the next slide. Just down the hill of Assisi is the small church of San Damiano. And San Damiano was a church that lay in ruins back in the early days of San Francesco. He had returned from a battle in the city of Spoleto. He had left the battle and had begun to be disgusted with war. And he came to this chapel and he knelt down before a crucifix that was in the chapel, and he had a vision, right? And the vision was the cross speaking to him to say, come and build my church, you know? And so San Francisco thought it meant build up this ruined church of San Damiano, and he started to do that. Eventually he wrote this Cantico delle Creature in the gardens of San Damiano. It's the convent. It became the convent for the followers of Santa Chiara, and they're eventually called the Port Clares. And in the back of this, in the gardens of San Damiano, there's a life-size statue of San Francisco. That's the statue there. Picture, and he's looking out on the Spoleto Valley and contemplating nature, and he comes up with this wonderful prayer poem that begins, as you have in that first passage, Altissimo, Onnipotente, Bon Signore, tuo so le laude, la gloria e l'onore, ed ogni benedizione a te, Altissimo, si confono, nullo homo enu digno te mentovare. So those are the opening lines of that. And that he ends that opening stanza of the Cantico of the Creatures with this phrase that will be picked up by Pope Francis and his work on the environment. Laudato sia mi Signore con tutte le tue creature. Praise be you, O Lord, for all your creatures. Right? So. One of the ideas that Tom Berry shared with us, and he was working on developing as he was writing his book, I was there in 1995, and he talked about these three mediations that define the grand trends of civilization and Western culture. He said the first was the mediation between the human and the divine, and it defined the first 3,000 years of our collective civilization. And the second mediation was one that had become more and more important in the last 2 centuries. It was the mediation, he called it interhuman, the reconciliation between different human groups. And then he said, this is the last of this passage there, our preoccupation with this second mediation continues even while a third mediation is so strong that it overshadows in its significance even its predecessor. And I speak of the mediation between the human community and the earth, the planet that surrounds and supports us, and upon which we depend for our nourishment. Right? So that idea of the three mediations, I wanted to bring to the writing of San Francesco and the writing of Dante. San Francesco, thank you. San Francesco, when he works out this song of creation, he calls each of the elements in nature part of his family. Frate sole, sora luna, frate vento, sora acqua, frate fuoco, sora nostra madre terra, brother sun, sister moon, brother wind, sister water, brother fire, sister, our mother earth. He says that we belong to, we share in a common universal story, and we belong to a family together. And that's the way that we should look at nature, just as we should look at God in that way. I've gotten my 1 minute signal, so I'm going to wrap up here. But the rest of this, Larry, if you could kind of go forward to, this was the passage on the mediations, and if you could go forward to just the Dante, Dante's Divine Comedy kind of presents us, it's written as Inferno and Purgatorio and Paradiso, and the Inferno underlines this quality of the natural world and its nature images that are particularly awesome in their terrifying quality, right? And as we move forward, Larry, if you move forward to the last slide, we go from the dark woods in the beginning of the Commedia, go ahead, to the entrance into the underworld, to the confrontation with Satan at the bottom of Inferno, to the climbing up and rising. If you go ahead, Larry. to the next slide, through the different range of purgatory, and finally, last slide, to the beatific vision, we become aware of the awesomeness of the full universe, our universe story, as it offers us an opportunity to vision ourselves and to become entranced with the totality that is all of the human and the divine and the natural world working together. So those are some of the ways that we can take Thomas Berry's thoughts and bring them into the study of literature. And as I say, I'm indebted to every single member of this, deeply indebted to every single member of this panel discussion for, in so many ways, for giving me the chance to get to know Tom Berry and to, through him, get to know these great masterpieces of world literature a little bit better. Thank you all very much.
Thank you. We have 15 minutes, so I'd like to see if the panelists would like to add anything, as well as questions, comments, additions, subtractions from all of you. Panelists, any thoughts?
The Divine Comedy is really the climax, the most beautiful climax of the classical cosmology that grew out of aristocratic civilization as edging into the bourgeois world, full of poetry, full of beauty. And the problem that was faced by modernity was they discovered that the scientific information on which it was based was untrue. Because the heavens, where we thought the divine was, finally, beginning with Copernicus and Kepler and then Galileo, and finally Newton, who does the decisive laws of motion, discovers the decisive laws of motion, all prove that what was one time called terrestrial mechanics of the Earth and the celestial mechanics of the heavens were the same, and so it was all one place. Then you had two obvious choices. Either everything could be seen as spiritual, the Earth and the heavens together, which was kind of the Platonic option, and that came up somewhat, particularly in the Renaissance. But the other option was that, well, then the heavens could be reduced to the material, and that is the ultimate triumph of scientific materialism. Now, the modern science went with the second option, which was about the only one really available to it, because chemistry worked with that, it didn't work with Platonism. And what they tried to do to compensate, because the founders of modern science were all Christians, including Newton, although he's more like a Unitarian. Newton actually wrote more books about religion than he did about science. They made psychology psychological and condensed it into the psyche, the suke, the soul, in Greek. But that wouldn't hold up because it had no relationship to the world of matter. Whereas the Platonic thing, the world of matter, had at least been a reflection of the higher. And over time, what I would call the bourgeois psychological spirituality of interiority got thinner and thinner and collapses first into secularism, and then into relativism, and then into nihilism. And that's where we stand now. The other alternative we have, instead of the Platonic solution of reducing matter to spirit so that matter becomes an illusion, is you discover spirit back in matter, which was the way of the primal peoples who saw the material world as spiritual.
So true.
And that is what is being actually in the frontiers of science and cognitive theory, discovering that the best way of explaining what is happening in matter is that it is thoughtful. The cell has to decide what is food and what is poison, what to eat and not to eat. And intentional, but not like design, like an engineer, but artistically so. So either, and what's the problem with the whole Catholic Restoration, it's been trying to go back to something that in fact was scientifically wrong. It can take all that beautiful energy of Dante and move it forward into the future, and that is the great challenge for the Catholic University.
This is why we're very sorry that Dr. Holland, this is his last year, and he's going to be retiring. This is one of the many, many reasons. Thank you so much. By the way, Tom Berry loved Dante. In fact, in many of the years when he taught in Italy, he taught a course, a whole 6 weeks course on Dante. He just, for all of the reasons that we just mentioned. Any other comments from the panelists? Let's try to keep them brief because we only have another 7 minutes. Elsie?
Yes. One of the questions that I have for you all is the world of sustainability right now. It's it's breaking apart. You don't see it as not only a business because sustainability now is just turned into business, but as something that affects spiritually.
So did everybody understand? So as the world is breaking down, what are the alternatives that we see? Is that what the question is, Elsie? Okay. Anybody? Let's keep, because of the time, let's keep our Joe.
Well, in our law school, Tom Berry's work has also taken root in the Center for Earth Jurisprudence, where with Barrow University and St. Thomas, there's an injection into law, not just human rights, not just animal rights, but the rights of the earth, water, and so on. So out of the university system, there ought to be a thrust forward, in a major way. And as Elisabetta and Joe and Jim and Eugenia are saying, it really is going to have to come out of the new people, with your vision and your ability to express. Though I do have a suggestion, and then I'll be quiet. Bill Gates has just committed tens of billions of dollars to solar energy around the world, okay? The Pope has just written a great encyclical, okay, bringing the Catholic Church up to that, hopefully, that vision. St. Thomas University is diocesan. St. Thomas University could partner with Bill Gates with the idea that every parish rectory, 100 of them in Miami, could have solar energy funded by Bill Gates within 3 years. And then every diocese in the United States, the Pope, there could be out of the Catholic and global, local, national, so on, a system on a global level to do something like an imaginative shock. Could you imagine if something like that on that scale happened? And then young people hopefully would have the vision and the pathway to bring your own gifts along. So it has to be local, it has to be national, it has to be international. Bill Gates, the Pope, St. Thomas, solar energy, there's an idea.
Wow. With those pearls of wisdom.
I have another response. Yeah, Dr. Iannone mentioned the law school's work and Bill Gates and the billions of dollars, but my own response to your question, which is perfect, which is really what can we do to continue the sustainability movement and not allow it to fall apart? And Tom Berry dedicated himself to telling the story about the universe, to telling a new story that takes the old stories and builds into them the extraordinary accomplishments of contemporary science, as well as as you mentioned, the indifference towards the pollution and the destruction of the earth. And I think that's the call to your generation. I'm at the end of my career, but I have the opportunity to watch wonderful people like Eugenia beginning her career, influenced by people like Tom Berry, and this call to each of you to build your stories, around what you hear here, around the beauty and the awesome power of nature and its relationship to the divine, and the fact that your story is connected to a universal story.
Oh my goodness, wonderful, wonderful. We only have time for a very quick either questions or comment. Anybody? Well, then we're going to close it. I want to thank, first of all, very, very deeply the panelists, really. But above all, I want to thank so much Jonathan, Larry, and above all, Nina, for the incredible work that it went into this, as well as Carlos, who has done this very nice, which is on YouTube, and it's called Thomas Berry in Italy. Very creative. Again, thank you so much. And there are hors d'oeuvres right there at the table at Papa. Thanks again.